Hey everyone! Today we're going to go through some last minute college essay checks to do before you submit your application. And I know what you're thinking, another college essay video? But seriously, these are just 9 quick tips that you should definitely go through before you submit your college essay just so you avoid making any of those little mistakes. I've split these tips up into flow, grammar, and content. These are tips that are really going to help you elevate your essay in very quick ways. So whether you're confident with your essay or not, these are all checks that everyone should go through. So hopefully they can help you. And hey, for those of you who may not know me, I'm Priya. I'm here to help you get into college. So let's get straight to it. The first 3 tips are about your college essay's flow. First tip, check your first 3 sentences of your introduction. Do they set the scene? And do they lead into your story? Or is it more straightforward? Because we don't want it to be more straightforward. We want to really set the scene and lead the reader into a great story. And to do that, we need to entice them. We need to create a hook. And describing your surroundings is honestly a great hook because everyone's going to describe their surroundings to their anecdotes differently. The second tip is about the flow between every single one of your paragraphs. Does the last sentence of the previous paragraph flow with the first sentence of the next? Take a step back and just highlight the last sentence of every paragraph and the first sentence of every paragraph and take a look to see if they flow together. If they don't, this is going to make for a very choppy college essay, which isn't ideal when you want to tell them your story. Quick tip though, I don't want you to use analytical or awkward transitions at the beginning of your paragraphs. Just having analytical transitions like therefore, firstly, lastly, secondly, however, any of those transitions at the beginning or at the end seem a little analytical and it's hard to tell your story. And the point of our essay is not to give them an analytical research paper, it's to show them your own creative personal narrative. And the last point for flow is about your conclusion. Check if your conclusion relates back to your introduction. Whatever you introduced in your intro, subtly reference it in your conclusion to wrap up your college essay and frame it in a pretty picture. Also ensure that in your college essay conclusion, you really look towards your future and you're enthused about your future. You don't want to add in any new information about personal growth, but rather you really want to just tie up your essay, so your conclusion shouldn't be too long. Now let's move on to grammar. This is honestly a very simple way to elevate your essay and really just enhance your writing by ensuring that all of your grammar is correct. So let's go on to the first point. I see this one a lot. Always stay consistent with tense. Don't shift between past and present tense. And I know it's so easy to do that when you're writing your college essay, but you have to go back and ensure that every paragraph is consistent and consistently in past tense up until your conclusion. That's what I recommend to everybody because everything you're detailing in your college essay is from your past. And at the end, that's where you really look towards your future and your conclusion. So it makes sense if you have a sentence or 2 at the end in future tense. I will caveat this by saying some people do write in the present tense for their introduction where they're really trying to set the scene. That's all right in some cases. So this isn't a set in stone tip, but it is very important if you start in the present tense, shift to past tense throughout all your body paragraphs because it happened in the past, guys. So that's tip 1, stay consistent with tense. Tip 2, contractions. This is one that's up for debate. I personally do use contractions. I don't say I have done blank. I always say I've done. And I know that is a less formal way of saying it, but I'm not a formal person really. I wrote all of my college essays using contractions, but totally up to you whether you want to use contractions or not in your Common App essay and your supplemental essays. Just ensure that you're consistent with them. Don't start using contractions and then switch to a more formal language later on. Stay consistent. The third tip, and this is the one that kind of eludes most people, it's trailing sentences and punctuation when it comes to semicolons, colons, dashes. So a trailing sentence is when you're trying to say just so many things in the same sentence and it just doesn't work. Split those sentences up into readable sentences where each sentence has a purpose and has a point. Also, if you notice any sentences with more than one punctuation when it comes to semicolons, colons, or dashes, that just shows you that it's a trailing sentence. If you use a semicolon, you can only use 1 per sentence. Same when it comes to colons and dashes. A good rule of thumb is just using 1 per sentence. Before we move on to the last 3 tips, which are in the big bucket of content, If you found any value in this video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel. I'm very new to YouTube and I'm just here to share everything I've learned along the way. So join me on my journey. Moving on to content, the first tip. Ensure that you haven't given the reader more context than growth in your essay. The reason we start your college essay off with an anecdote is to really set the scene and show them the context that is your life so that they can understand the future growth that you go into in your essay. Ensure that your context isn't more than about I'd say 30 to 40% of your essay. I go into this in this video where I talk about the biggest mistake I see in all the Common App essays I've edited, which has been so many, you guys. So ensure that you have less context and more growth. Try to be as succinct as you can given the context in your story. Tip 2, check if you showcase growth through the structure of your essay. I'd recommend it being linear, where you start with the context and then pivot to growth. I think that pivot point is really important, where you signal to the reader, like, this is what happened, but this is what I learned from it, and this is how I implemented what I learned in my life. If your essay doesn't follow that structure and you kind of piggyback from context to growth, that's all right. Just figure out whether that's conducive to showing the reader all of the growth in your essay. So that's something you need to check. A way you could check that is just by highlighting all of the sentences where you talk about personal growth and how you implemented what you learned from those points of personal growth in your life. If those sentences aren't like 50 or 60% of your essay, there's something wrong with your content there. And the last tip I have today for you guys is information about others in your essay. So this is any info that isn't about you in your essay. Highlight all of it. So if you're detailing something about someone else who's relevant to your story in any of your anecdotes, your family, your friends, whatever, highlight it. This will show you whether you wrote about other people in your essay in an elaborate way, which is too much for your college essay. Honestly, this is your one shot to tell them your story. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. So if you're adding in random facts about other people that you think might be pertinent to the story, but is not actually that pertinent, please take it out and rephrase, restructure, whatever you need to do, because I don't want to read your college essay and see facts about other people when I'm actually just trying to learn about you, your story, and your growth, and I want to see if you're a good fit for campus. So that's all for today, guys. Don't forget to check out all of my other college essay videos or the ones about the Common App. I really go through all things college, so don't forget to check out my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys at the next video.